There we go. All right, so yeah, I'm here to talk about unifying data sources with GraphQL. I'm going to try and fit this in 7 minutes now, so the next speaker can get going. But I think the main thing I want to talk about is building, deploying, and maintaining GraphQL or any API is difficult. This is just a snapshot of some of the things that we have to think about when we are building APIs. And I think the most important thing that I want to get across today is that we use so many different services today. It doesn't matter where the data comes from. We use the best of breed solutions for what we want to do for our clients, right? So that data and means we have to use all sorts of different SDKs and APIs, and all of those have their own learning curves. And they all differ, they all vary. Some are easy, some are hard, some take no time at all to get started with, some take a lot longer. And I think also with the vast array of services that we've got, the data, we don't get much choice in where the data lives. If it lives in one region, we often have to pay for it. And then if we have some flexibility in where we can store the data, if we can replicate it elsewhere, then we often have to pay for it for each individual vendor. So that costs businesses a lot more than I think it needs to. So we at GraphBase are actually trying to fix this. And what we're trying to do is be this kind of API layer. This isn't a new thing, but we're trying to revolutionize the way people do it by using GraphQL to do all of this. There are other services that are doing this, but with us, we are focused on delivering all of this at the edge. So you can connect data warehouses, CMSs, commerce platforms, whatever it be, and you can link it obviously to your existing front end, back end, whatever it be. We've got a lot of other things that you can check out if you're interested. Let's get past that. Because of GraphQL, it works with absolutely everything, which is awesome. Now I'm going to dive into the code now. I'm going to switch over to the code editor, and we'll go through what it looks like to kind of configure all of this, and then how we can use GraphiQL to interface with it. So here, I don't know if it's very visible or not, but we've got a TypeScript configuration where you can configure your backend, connect Shopify, different data sources, whatever it be, create custom resolvers for your GraphQL queries and mutations and things, and you can configure it in SDL or TypeScript. I don't know if we can talk about TypeScript anymore because it's no longer a thing I read yesterday. So maybe we should go back to SDL. I'm not sure. So let's dive very quickly into the demo. I was going to run through creating all of these steps step by step, but we don't have the time. So let's go through it. So if you've used something to build a GraphQL server before, doing something like this might be familiar, where you kind of create your query, you define the arguments, and then you kind of connect a resolver. With GraphBase, you install an SDK, and it's one single folder that belongs in your repo inside of your project, where whatever that project be, and you can create all of your resolvers inside of there. But having one config, you can define all of your queries, and then you can specify where that query or mutation links to with a file, and we kind of take care of building all of this for you. And as soon as you do kind of commit that to GitHub, it's deployed automatically to the edge. So this is a query, and then here we have an enum in GraphQL, and then we've got an input type, and that's kind of what the SDK looks like for that. So we've got another type here, and then we've got a mutation. This is all standard stuff, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the thing that is quite cool is that you can connect pretty much any API that has an OpenAPI spec or an existing GraphQL API. And all you need to do is pass the schema to that spec. Configure any headers. Here you can forward, or you can configure headers that belong and are stored within GraphBase itself. And then we can make the schema look a little bit nicer by specifying however we want to query, however we want to name those queries. And then all we need to do is connect it as one data source. So moving on to the next thing with that, the actual power that then gives us is this will generate a GraphQL API, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But we can then take this API, and it'll generate a type called Stripe customer, and then we can attach a custom field resolver to that, and that resolver is deployed to the edge alongside the API. So what I'm trying to get across here is you can build these GraphQL APIs, deploy to the edge, and all you really need to do is configure a file that looks like this. So it's a lot better, I think, than having to create something with Apollo Server or GraphQL Yoga or whatever, and then manage all of the scripts to automatically deploy it, handle branching, things like that. So here we've got a very simple configuration for different input types for the field here, Gravatar, and that's extending the Stripe customer. This field doesn't live within Stripe. This is something custom, and that's kind of the code there. That's the resolver. So we get email from the root, and then we do what we need to do to return a URL for that field. So back inside the configuration, the thing that we've just launched is actually working with MongoDB. So we can attach using MongoDB's data API. We can do all of this at the edge, deploy an API for you that is GraphQL but talks to MongoDB. So there's no longer the need to talk and interface with different SDKs. You can just use the single GraphQL API. And the beauty of this is that it can be joined and extended with other services as well. And then what we can do is specify what different models look like for the schema within MongoDB. And that's what that looks like there. And then on top of all of that, we can do things like add caching, where here we can specify different rules for different fields. So don't go and run the resolver file to get the value, just cache that field for however long you want. And there's tons of different rules that you can do there. We are very short on time, so I'm just going to skip right to just show what that looks like. So I ran this before I come up. If I run this again, here we can see we've got a query that's talking to Stripe. It's getting the list of customers from my Stripe account, and it's adding that custom Gravatar field that is resolved by GraphBase. This is all running locally as well. All you need to run is one command, which is npx GraphBase dev. You get the full working developer environment locally. And then here we've got a query to MongoDB. And we can see here we kind of get the relay-like API for all of the different nodes here. And those fields map what we configured in the SDK. And then those go and talk to Mongo and make all of the kind of correct projections to get the data and whatnot. And on top of all of that, obviously you get things like filtering. So you can do whatever you need to do to query and filter the data you want. So that's a very quick demo of the kind of things that we're doing. And on top of all of that, like I say, it works locally. And as soon as you push it to GitHub, it will automatically be deployed. If you create a branch on your front end and you add a new query that's using this MongoDB thing, then that branch will get its own preview URL as well automatically. You don't need to handle and configure any workflows with GitHub, GitLab, or whatever you're using. This is all just done automatically. And there's so many of the little services on top, like auth you can configure to work with different auth providers to prevent access to certain things. But yeah, that's it. I'm a little bit over, I think. But that was a 20-minute talk in 7 minutes. So there we go.
Thank you, Jamie. Everyone give a clap.